Okay.
I am recording.
Okay. Welcome to our 601 add-on license weekly Zoom class. This is week 6. We are officially over 1/3 of the way of this semester. How time flies. We have a lot to do this evening. With us is Dr. Lamb was able to join us tonight, so he's going to be sharing in some of the presentation that we're going to be doing this evening. Dr. Hamilton is with us. Dr. Shepard is with us, and Dr. Crawford, if you're there, let me know, and if not, he will be joining us. Let's go ahead and move forward. Dr. Lamb want to show you again what is expected of you for week 6 as far as assignments are concerned. The APSL Task 4, as you can see over here, the APSL Task 4, the revisions are due to the assignment Dropbox as a final grade. Many of you have already done that. Just a reminder, most of you caught this, but a few of you, I had to send it back out of all 4 classes, and realizing that there are 2 tasks or two things that you have to do in Task 4. And remember that when you turn your final in, there should be evidence that you have presented this to your administrative team. The APSL Task 4 peer reviews are also due this week. As a reminder, and we getting much more rigorous in our expectations with this, please take the time and do good peer reviews. Make it worth your time and worth the author's time to give them information back. You're not writing a dissertation there, but we want the feedback to be such that that is meaningful to the author and that they can use it, even if it looks good. Don't just say it looks good. Point out something that looks good. Tell why it looks good. One of the things that you're accomplishing from this, or should accomplish from this, is that as you become an administrator, you're going to be responsible for reviewing teachers' work all the time, doing their walkthroughs, doing their evaluations. So this is good practice in providing good feedback, both positive and then the constructive as well. So make it good feedback. Don't ever put NA on there, non-applicable, because we expect something to be in every space. And then the APSL Task 5, which I'm going to go over in just a few minutes, is due to the instructor's assignment Dropbox. This will not go in for a review. It will not go in, well, it can go in for a review. If you need somebody to look at it prior to submitting it, I can look at it. Dr. Crawford can look at it, and in the discussion box if you have a question about it, or you can send it to your into the internship shell as well if you need somebody to look at it. But this will be due as well on Sunday night to the assignment Dropbox, and at that point you will have completed all 5 tasks of the APSL. We will mention it tonight, but our responsibility next Tuesday will be to tell you how, if you haven't figured it out, how to put all of this together and to get it ready for that final submission. And we won't have time to spend a lot of time with it tonight. We will mention it, but then next Tuesday we will tell you exactly what it is that you've got to do with that. Okay. Another reminder, in the middle you see resources and readings. These are, they're there for a reason. I'm hoping that you're keeping up with this. Everything that we have posted there, you're required to independently take care of this on your own. Now, while we're not covering this verbatim every week, the topics that we're discussing with Dr. Crawford, Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Shepard, and Dr. Lamb and myself, they're pulled from your readings. and you should be able to have figured that out already based on the things that they're discussing, how they tie in there. Sometimes we will go directly to one of the sources. In fact, Dr. Crawford is going to refer to one of the readings that you had to do for this week tonight, and he'll share that later on. So, you know, the reading is purposeful, and you're responsible for keeping up with that independently on your own. We would love to see evidence of the fact that you are that you're pulling reference information and research information from these texts as well, and that we can see that this is being referenced in some of the work that you're submitting to us. Dr. Lamb, if you'll go to over to the left and go to the APSL template and materials. And let's go to scroll on down to the bottom of that. On the very bottom one, MEL that competencies. This is placed in your course shell under APSL template and materials. And for this week, task 5, you are responsible for looking at 12 of the 21 competencies. The ones in yellow that are highlighted in yellow are the ones that are non-negotiable. These are the 8 that are required for you. From communication to visionary, you are to narratively explain to us how you have met that competency. Communication, how did you do it? And you're to do it in narrative form. We do not need to see, or we should not see artifacts with this. However, if you're smart, you are banking those artifacts while you're writing your narrative and putting them somewhere, because remember, at the end of the semester, you have got to show us all 21 competencies, how you have met them with an artifact of some kind. But all we're looking for in the APSL is the narrative work on how you have met 12 of those competencies. There are the 8 that you are required to do. And Dr. Lamb, if you would scroll down. These are all 21 competencies, and you are to pick 4 additional competencies in addition to those 8, and you're to reflect on them as well. That is 12 of the 21. The remaining 9 will be done at the end of the APTEL, the next evidence that will begin in just a few weeks. Dr. Lamb, do you have anything that you'd like to say in addition to what I've said about that? Is pretty much self-explained.
Remember, this is competency analysis. Competency folio is the artifact. This is where you write your persuasive narrative for your competency. I don't want to see narrative in your competency folio. I want to see things in your competency folio. This is where you get to make your argument for competency narratively, but not. Don't confuse competency folio and competency analysis. Analysis is just that. It's a written narrative. Folio is where you're going to put your artifacts that you save up along the way.
Okay, and many of you have already gotten to this point, so I'm just going to very quickly, and Dr. Lamb, if you would like to chime in, or if you would chime in with this. Next week, as I said, we're going to tell you specifically what you need to do to put the APSL together as a completed product. But those of you that are at that point, you know, your job is going to be that when you get approval or all 5 tasks have been completed, you go back and you're going to put it into a single document for final submission. And with that single document, you've got 5 tasks, but you're going to have one title page, one cover sheet that has my name here, and then you're going to have your the 5 tasks, and then following that, you're going to take all of your references from the 5 tasks, and you're going to combine them into one reference section, and you're going to take all of your the appendices is going to be a combination of everything that you have collected from task 1 through 5, and that will come at the end as a final document, and you will prepare it for approval to go in to turn it in, and we'll talk about that next week. Or Dr. Lamb, you may want to go ahead and tell them about turn it in, what to do there.
All right. When you have compiled your final evidence narrative, you will come to, I clicked on the wrong one here. Let me get the right one.
There it is.
AppSell final evidence narrative. When you've compiled all 5 of your evidences, your task, into one final evidence, and it looks as if you wrote it all at one time, all the references are at the end and then the appendices behind that, you will come here, click on View Complete, and you will upload your document here and submit it for your Turnitin check. That will go to your instructor. Your instructor will grade it, and if it meets the standard of 30% or less, then it will move on, and they will tell you, and you will then submit it in TaskStream. If it does not meet the standard of 30% or less, then they will send it back to you, and usually it's a reference issue. You haven't cited your references correctly, but we'll give you a little leeway on that 30. But since this is your first one, there's going to be 30% that's going to match from the directions in the template itself. But your original work, if there's more than 30%, usually it's a reference that you didn't cite a reference, and it appeared that it was your original work. But you're going to bring it here and check it before it goes to TaskStream, because if it goes to TaskStream and fails there, we're in trouble. They're going to check it in TaskStream. So get it done here. Now, this is a one-time deal. This is a one-time deal for us. So
Dr.
don't
Lamb,
put it in there and then say, well, I'll fix it. I'll let them tell me what to fix. No, it's a one-time deal. Once it goes through us one time, you fix those things, then we can't submit it here again. It goes to TaskStream. So don't use this as a formative assessment.
I'm going to tell them, Dr. Lamb, I don't want it turned in. Nobody out of the 4 classes, you do not turn it in until Dr. Crawford or I tell you that it's ready to go. You need to send it to us. When you put this document together, you send it to us to review, and we can tell you that it's ready for you to turn it in. I'd rather do that. Is that okay, Dr. Lamb?
That's fine with me, ever how y'all want to do it.
That's how I want it done.
You're gonna, that's just an extra step for them and for you.
That's okay. I feel that that's where it needs to be at this point.
Okay.
No, it doesn't go into email. It would go into your, just put it submit it into the discussion for us, and we'll look at it. I won't do that with the AppTel, but I think I'm going to do this with the AppTel just to make sure.
Now you've got an assignment Dropbox right here for them to drop it in.
They can put it in with under task 5 final.
Yeah, they can put it
in
here.
Well, when you do the task, okay, well, we'll do that. When you put it into task 5 for the final, then what you will do is you will put the whole document in there for us to look at.
They can go back and put it in there.
Yes, that would be the place to do it then.
That would be the easiest place. Just go back. It'll let you put multiple submissions in.
Okay, and that would be where you would put it then.
Just put it back in there if you want to do an extra time around the make.
No, that makes sense. I had forgotten about that, but I'd rather have my finger on the pulse for this one, and then they should be okay when they get to the AppTel and not have to do that.
Okay.
It won't take long to look at that.
All righty then.
I would feel better about it. And I think that's it until next week. At least it gives them a chance. They know what to do if they're at that place to be able to move on and do that. It won't hold anybody back. Um, Dr. Lamb, let's move on to the case studies. The case study is due week 8. This is week 6, so you have 2 weeks. Dr. Lamb is going to introduce our case study for us and talk about how it relates to the work that you have done with the APSL.
All right, so your first case study is related to the APSL. Let's go to case study materials. And here are your directions. Make sure that you follow these to a T. All right. Read the case study and write 1 paragraph response for each of the questions. All right. Do that first. There are 4 questions. Write a 1 paragraph response to what you think the answer to that question is. Then the Zoom master, just like you're doing a Zoom peer review, sends out the link and records the case study Zoom session. Now, I get asked all the time, how long should these sessions last? No more than 30 minutes. Somewhere between 15 and 30. But if you're prepared, if you already have yours, in order to be able to share your written response, and then you engage in a scholarly discussion of the responses led by the Zoom master. Group consensus is desirable but not required. And then each candidate will then write a 1-page, 2-part reflective summary of the case study and the case study Zoom session. What'd you get out of the case study and what'd you get out of working with your colleagues? Because each is valuable. And we'll be looking to see that it's a scholarly discussion. So that's what we're looking for. You read the case, you write a 1 paragraph on each of the 4 questions, you have a Zoom session, you share those, you have a scholarly discussion. Again, consensus is not required, but kind of come up with what you think are the right answers to the questions. And then you write your reflective summary about the process of reading the case, writing the paragraph, sharing it with others, the scholarly discussion. Make sure you cover that in your reflection.
And now, Dr. Lamb, just a reminder that the only thing we just want your the reflection, that your answers to those 4 questions, you don't have to send us those answers. We'll talk about those in your Zoom session with your peers. And as a reminder, when you send your reflection in, you attach the Zoom link to that. You send them both in at the same time in one document.
Okay. So here are your questions. What do you think of the way James handled this particular situation, considering his limited background? He's an operations person, PE guy, doesn't know anything about instruction. He's put in charge of a school. What more could be done to help the reading scores in the school? What additional resources could James utilize to help the school improve? What could he be sacrificing, if anything, by placing an extraordinary emphasis on the reading program only? All right, so I'm going to give you a big hint here. James did not do a PLC. So keep that in mind. That's my hint to you is so far this semester, you've learned how to put together a PLC. That it's just not a collection of teachers, that there has to be a higher purpose. There has to be norms and values. You have to look at data. You have to look at best practices. You have to do research. You have to identify your most pressing need, all those kinds of things. Your hint is James didn't do any of that. Go. All right. So that's your first case study. It is, at this point where you are now, this one should be a piece of cake for you. All right. So there's your case study. I'll close that and go back over here. Under case study, there's the directions. There's scenario 1. There's the place you put your written reflection and Zoom link. There's scenario 2, again, written reflection and Zoom link. You just upload them right there. They're all under case study materials. Should be easy peasy. I will pause and see if there are any questions. Okay. So this is kind of an assessment for us to see how well you're doing, how well you're internalizing the information that you're supposed to be learning in this class. Can you actually put it in practice now? Can you recognize what needs to be done? No, you just do one. You don't do both case studies at once. This one's for the app cell. You'll do the next one when you get to the end of the app tell. Again, this is our assessment to see how well we're doing or how well they're doing and how well you're doing. Just because we're pitching doesn't mean you're catching. We want to see what your thought process, what did you learn from this? From what you've been doing for the last 6 weeks. They've been running you over the coals here. Have you been learning anything? This is, assessment drives instruction. Assessment informs instruction. This is a way to first to find out if is there gaps in what you're supposed to be learning. This is kind of, you putting it together. Yeah, you can write, you're writing your evidences as you go. But can you look up now from that evidence work? Can you look up and say, oh, this is how this applies in real life? That's what I'm interested in. Can you take this? Is it transferable? These skills that you're learning, are they transferable to the real world, or is it just some academic pursuit for you that you don't really understand how to take and put it in place in the real world? That's what we're looking for here. So you'll do this one now, and when you get to the last task of the app tell, you'll do the second case study. This one goes with the app cell. The next one goes with the app tell. So don't do them both now. All right, back to you, Dr. Stedman.
Okay. Dr. Lamb, while you're there, remind them about the town hall with Dr. Bull tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock.
It's optional if you'd like to talk with him. He comes online a couple times a semester. It's tomorrow night at 7. We've sent the link out. It's in your course announcement. We've emailed it to you. So if you'd like to come online with him, he is available. I'm sure you'll have some sort of a prepared State of the Union address about the School of Education. And from there, he said he would be more than happy to answer your questions if you have any. It's a good opportunity to make that connection with him.
Okay, that's just a reminder. Dr. Crawford, are you with us?
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Crawford is going to, our three instructors are going to be speaking over the next few minutes on different topics as it relates to the readings that you had to do for this week. And Dr. Crawford is going to talk about micropolitics, and as he's talking about micropolitics, he's referring to the article that you had to read in the course syllabus for week 6 under resources and readings. And Dr. Crawford is going to relate this topic to the role of the 21st century administrator. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Crawford at this time.
Right. So good evening, everyone. Hope everybody had a good Tuesday. One thing you'll learn about me is I have an aversion to being read to. Therefore, I don't like to read to people. So one of the things I will highly recommend is if you haven't had the opportunity to really sit down and read the article, that you do so. It's actually one of the better ones that I've read on leadership in general and some of the things that you will face. Many of you, when you will graduate, you will go into an assistant principalship, and allow me to be the first to tell you, because assistant principal doesn't really quite prepare you for making that jump from the assistant principal chair to the principal's chair. And I'll be honest, I don't know that I was prepared for it when it came upon me when I took over Northridge Middle School in August. Let me tell you, you will learn very quickly what you don't know. So with regard to the article, there were lots of little nuggets in the article that I found very prescient. I highlighted just a couple of things that I think are things to keep in mind as you go through your time. As you go through your time as an assistant principal and dealing with people, and then on to the principalship. One of the first things I would highly recommend is to know who you are and know who and what your biases are. And now, understand this. Everybody has biases. Everyone comes to the table with some type of baggage. And that's natural. It's part of being human. But to be successful in the closed community that is a school, and that's whether you are in Dr. Shepard's school of, what do you say, 1,800 kids, when you're dealing with a staff of over 200, everyone has baggage. And if you don't understand what each other's biases are or learn what they are, then things can get messy really, really, really quick. One of the things that I pulled out of the reading was one of the definitions, and that is, importantly, micropolitics refers to the nexus between the formal structures of an organization and the informal structures of influence. Folks, what you need to understand is that in your school, and you may not necessarily see it now in your current position, but trust me, when you come out of the classroom and you go into a leadership position, be that some type of department chair or an assistant principal, I'm pretty sure all you're heading, or ultimately the principalship, that is when you will run through your school. As a principal, it's important to make sure that you have an idea of where as many of them are as possible. A lot of people call it keeping the pulse on your school. There's any number of colloquial names for it, but one of the things that you must learn to do is get that idea of what your school looks like from 3,000 and then 5,000 feet. Because one of the things in the article also says is
Okay.
At that conflict, if you ever left a staff meeting, yeah.
We keep losing you.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
That's probably my internet connection. I'm working on it. Hang on a second.
Okay.
Okay. One of the things the article points out is that you can have both overt and covert conflict. And what I was saying is, if you've ever introduced something after a staff meeting, you've gone back to your office and you're feeling pretty good, and you happen to look outside your office window and you see 5, 6, 7, 8 people all gathered around the parking lot, then you know folks are having what we call the meeting after the meeting. And then that should give you an indication, a good indication that you're going to have issues down the road, because people have heard one thing, but they're thinking another, and all of a sudden you're going to have to go back and start cleaning up messes, drama, whatever it is you want to call it. So that's one of the things we'll look out for. The article focuses a lot on distributed leadership. And folks, I think a simple way to identify that would be learn to allow others to help you carry your water. It took me 3-4 years of being a building level principal to really understand that life doesn't revolve around me, and that the more people I got involved in running the school, running projects, the more I learned to trust people, the more people learned to trust me. which brings me to the last point in the article that I pulled out, and that is, yet the success of such strategies depends on the trust between building principals and staff. Again, when you're dealing with micro political leadership, it's really, first of all, it's one of the things as a principal you're rated on. If you didn't know that, that's one of the standards that principals are directly rated on. But it's really about how you choose to manage people, how you choose to manage your building, and then how that manifests itself in your school. I remember at one point when I was a principal in Charlotte Mech, for a couple of years, they would actually keep track of the number of phone calls that were called into the area office, and then they would keep tally of things that the principal should have handled at the school, and then things and weren't handled, and things that should be handled at school and were. And I remember the first time I got my number on that, I had like 36 phone calls to the area office, and of those 36, only had 2 that should have been handled at the school and weren't. And yet I heard the range for my learning area at that time was a low of 20, which made me feel okay, and a high of like 61. Calls going into the area office. So learning how to manage conflict in whatever form it may take is one of those things that is one of those tasks that no amount of reading can really help you with. It's good to know the different types of conflicts. It's good to know the different types of leadership styles and positions. And this article does a really good job of doing that. But ultimately speaking, you want to make sure that, for me, that you're open, both for the good and the bad. So one of the things I tell my staff all the time is bring your skin. And part of that is my high school background as a high school teacher, and then the 5 years I spent at Eastway Middle School. But I simply want to bring my skin, and that's one of the things that I've learned to have to teach my staff. Recognize, ladies and gentlemen, that staffs are different from one building to the next. How I manage my current school would be a lot different than if I walked into Dr. Shepherd's school or even a school in Robeson County. You have to learn the difference between going into a rural setting. So I left Charlotte for a while, and I spent a year in Hardyville, South Carolina. I got to tell you, that was quite jarring. I had never been in a place that rural. As a matter of fact, that is where I learned the true definition of the term rural. And if you didn't know, Hardyville is 45 minutes east of Hilton Head, so that kind of gives you the direction where you are. But again, learning yourself, learning who you are, and then learning how to manage that within the context of your building, and then recognizing, folks, that what you can do in one building may or may not work in another building. Even something for me, so I'm a 240-pound bald male with a 19-inch neck. Believe it or not, some of the things that I have to be mindful of is making sure that I try to walk around my building with a smile on my face. Because if I don't, people automatically make the assumption that I'm upset about something. I'm not. Of course, I've had those days where I've been cussed out at 6:45 in the morning with somebody in pajamas and it rolls. If you haven't lived that life, then you haven't lived it. But it's the little things, folks, that micro-political leadership speaks to. And once you learn to manage those, and it's going to take you some time to manage them, and you are going to make mistakes. Once you learn to do that, then building, and then that is when you will learn how you want to manage and be the type of change agent or process agent that you want to be.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Crawford. And I think that the weather has created some problems for you, but I think we were able to get the gist of it. Great information. And hope that, students, I hope that you are taking all of this information to heart and knowing that every bit of this is from principals that live it every day. And so what they're telling you is not something that that they just read in a book. They practice it every day. So what you read about, they are actually doing it. And so they're trying to make application to the real world for you. At this time, Dr. Shepard is going to share with us over the next few minutes. His topic is policies in education. And I asked him if he would take a current and relevant issue that is a hot topic in education, and it's tied, and how it is tied to politics and related. So I have no idea what he's going to share, but I'm sure it's going to be good. So Dr. Shepard, it's yours at this time.
Yeah, there's a lot of hot topic items out there for education that can be tied back to politics. I mean, you can think of a dozen as I kind of went through here. For currently for us, you have a lot of school choice issues that are hot topics for us as educators. Merit pay is another big one. You guys are getting ready to be in one of the hottest pots in North Carolina when you talk about principal pay. And you talk about a hot topic issue and how that reverts back to politics. It comes back directly to your paycheck. And so I can get into depth with that if you're not on that. But as a principal, your entire paycheck is based upon a couple things. One, the population of your school, and that's just size alone. So how many students are in your ADM, and then the growth of your students academically. Okay. Now you think about how much your job, all the compartmentalized things that you have to do as an educator and a principal, and you boil down your paycheck, which can be a $15,000 swing from 2 years to the next. You think about that, $15,000 swing. If you think your paycheck's good right now, what could it be with a couple years of a cohort coming through with not so much growth that you wanted, even though you're doing the right things and you're working towards that? I can't think of a hot topic issue. Not to mention, for a lot of principals who have been doing this job for a long time, now this is as hot as it gets for a lot of principals, and there's two sides to this. But if you go and look at it this way, the principal who's been doing it for 25 years makes the same amount of money as the principal who's been doing it for 2 years. So there's not a lot of veteran incentive for folks there as principals when it comes to pay. Now, there's a lot of folks who would say the job's the job. You do the same job at 2 years that you do at 25 years. Well, there's a lot of veterans who are going to say, but I have a lot of wisdom. I've earned my money here. I've taken my lumps. I have a lot of leadership with 25 years. And there's a lot of folks still getting into the business here. And that's why the vast majority of your principals, to be honest with you, are going to be between 3 and 5 and 3 and 7 years. And so how do you deal with it as an educator? How do you deal with things like merit pay? How do you deal with things like, school choice issues? Honestly, for me, it goes back to a couple things. And you could take this to the classroom too. If you want to take politics as adults and you want to take hot topic issues as an adult and what adults deal with and talk about as professionals, you could go back and take that right back into the classroom as well. What are teachers dealing with, and how do you lead those teachers with some of the hot topics that they're dealing with? You could go back to a lot of the things that they're dealing with in the classroom. And how do you lead those teachers to clarify for students, lead positive change, empower those teachers, empower those students in a lot of these issues that they're dealing with and have to actively discuss with students and parents on a daily basis. I go back to a couple guiding principles since I only have a couple minutes. I think you could teach an entire course on micropolitics and hot topics and political leadership in the administrative level. But I go back to a couple things, if you're taking notes, that have kind of helped me along the way, things and areas I've failed in and things that I've learned from. And I'll go to a couple things. One, as a principal, when you're making these type of decisions with hot topic issues, or you're having discussions with hot topic issues, you always want to have somebody check your back. And I use that term a lot with my administrative team. I need you guys to check my back, or maybe I should check your back on that. And as a new principal, when you become an assistant principal, that person who's going to check your back before you have that discussion is probably going to be your principal. But when you become a principal, as Dr. Crawford said, you're probably not going to be ready. And that's okay. And you're not going to know a lot of things that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, which is why it's going to be so important for you to have a mentor who's done the job for a while, who does a good job at it, so you can pick up the phone and say, I need you to check my back on something. And that's going to save you a lot of headaches when it comes to hot topic issues and political discussion in the workplace. I would also say to you, try to find the win-win in a lot of these issues. When you're having discussions with your staff or amongst yourself, or you're leading teachers in these discussions and how they can handle them in the classroom or with parents, where's the win-win for you and where's the win-win for the school? Which goes back to the next point. Keep the main thing the main thing. That is really the learning in the classroom, the learning in the school, the culture that you work to create on a daily basis. And you think about principal pay. You can argue about principal pay and merit pay and school choice, but it all comes down to there's kids in a classroom with a teacher in front of them, and those teachers are responsible for teaching the standards, and the kids are responsible for learning. And as an administrator, your job is to support the learning and lead the learning and create a vision for your school. So if you keep those the main thing, you can always go back to that any type of discussion and say, how does this fit into our vision? What is the main thing? And sometimes that'll keep you away from a lot of headaches when it comes to hot topic issues and leading in politics, micropolitics in the workplace. There's a thin red line there. Dr. Stedman mentioned something earlier about, and it was Dr. Crawford, I believe too, about, leading discussions and those, what I call them parking lot conversations. After you've given the main points, you feel good about it and you go away and you realize there's still a lot of parking lot conversations taking place. That's going to happen. One of the things I've done to help solve a lot of that is when I have a meeting coming up and I've checked my back on it and I have had that discussion with people, I will do a flip meeting that next meeting. And so what I will do is I will record the meeting myself, present it just like we're doing right now on a Zoom or a GoTo. I will flip the meeting, just me talking, presenting the material, post an agenda, and I'll have the teachers in their pajamas at home and say, hey, when you get a chance over the next week, watch this meeting. And when we have our faculty meeting on Thursday, we're going to be answering the questions, or we're going to be doing this in small groups, and I'm going to come back and we're going to discuss this. So it gives everybody an opportunity to digest things. It gives everybody an opportunity to kind of break down this and get rid of that kind of parking lot conversation. So when you actually do have that meeting, you can get down to the nuts and bolts, answer any questions, and kind of clear out the fog in the room. So flip meeting for those type of discussions has been really helpful for me in the past. And it may be something that you want to use when you're doing some of your work here in portfolio, is how can you flip some of these meetings as an administrator. So those are some ideas and best practices when you're talking about hot topic issues and micropolitics as a school administrator.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shepard. Again, a lot of good information, and you're right. There could be a whole semester on just what we're talking about. Saw one of the questions come up while we're getting ready for Dr. Hamilton. For task 5, yes, you can use your clinical experience. You can use work from your APSL. Anything as it relates to the role of leadership, administrative responsibilities, any of that you can tie back to what you've done or experienced, then yes, you can use those in doing your work for task 5. Okay. Okay. Dr. Lamb, you with us? Okay. If you would, Dr. Lamb, pull up under week 6. We're going to refer to something in just a minute. Dr. Hamilton. Dr. Hamilton is going to share with you another important topic, and it's the impact of diversity on U.S. education. And she'll refer to this information in just a moment. Dr. Lamb, I don't think she's going to play it. She's just going to show them. She was, but I think she's going, so you can get back out of that. I think she's just going to let them know that it's there under week 6 and that they can refer back to that. So, Dr. Hamilton, I'm going to turn it over to you at this time.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. And we're going to talk about a hot topic in just a second as well. So diversity, in short, is just differences. Human diversity means just differences among people. So people in general, we look alike. And when we first meet, we'll often notice attributes about people, such as skin color, gender, age, what they're wearing, things like that. And this initial assessment that we often make of others often influences what we think, influences maybe the relationship we form with them or the way we engage with them. And it also often makes us make assumptions about them just based on what we saw on the outside. And really, we can't really make those assumptions, especially not when we're in these leadership roles. And not all diversities can be noticed or seen from the outside. Just because someone looks as if they grew up in a perfect home with Ozzie and Harriet Nelson does not mean they did. So we can't make assumptions based on these exteriors. So there is a video that's just in there for you, and it's about an equity. Actually, the North Carolina School Board Association has got an equity conference that they're having this week. And it's a very interesting little thing, and I certainly hope, it's almost disturbing for me, because I hope it was just paid actors. I hope they weren't really high school children. But it really shows how those hidden diversities and hidden differences that we cannot see, and how our assumptions sometimes get in the way. So it was just a little interesting 4-minute thing.
Dr. Hamilton,
yes.
it's only 4 minutes. Dr. Lamb, click it. I want them to see it, and we'll come back to it.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know where the sound is to it, but
I've got sound. Let me see. I had sound.
it was sound when I looked at it.
Did y'all, when I was playing it there, could y'all hear it?
No, I couldn't hear it. No.
Well, I've got my speakers on, and let me try it again. We'll see. Can you hear it now?
No.
No here? Okay.
Okay.
Let me see. No, I don't know why you can't hear the sound.
I don't either, because when Dr. Hamilton sent it to me to preview, I had sound on it then.
No. Somebody's chiming in.
Yeah, Anna said she's shown it to her students.
Bootstrap exercise, yeah.
Well, they may have to just, I mean, they've got the link to it, so, I mean, the URL, so they can just pull it up and play it themselves. But it's worth taking the 5 minutes and listen to it.
So anyway, it is worth it if you haven't seen it. But diversity is this huge subject that impacts us in our schools daily. When we first think of diversity, I think we often think about those things that we see on the outside, but often diversity is situational or things that we just can't see. And so we have to be mindful of those things as well. So some of those things could be like a transgender child in a gender-conforming society. And this is just a very interesting example that I had right in the middle of House Bill 2 and all the publicity and controversy that went along with that. I had a second-grade child who lived with his daddy 1 week a month and his mama 3 weeks a month. And when he was with mother, he was a girl, dressed as a girl, behaved as a girl. When he was with dad, he was required to dress as a boy and behave as a boy. So that was a lot. And the whole bathroom issues of where did this child go to the bathroom, and then of course the rights of other people, and how do you just sort of manage all that. And when I was an assistant principal, someone told me once, if you're put in an uncomfortable situation and you don't think you're going to know the right answer, it never hurts to just tell somebody, hey, you know what, I'm not really sure. I need to check on that, and I'll get back with you. And that person told me I've never had anybody mad for saying that, and I have personally never had anybody mad for saying that. And I've always just found it a best practice to just call your assistant superintendent or superintendent or whoever you think is the right person to call and get some advice, because ultimately if anything goes to a legal case or to the school board as a hearing or anything else, these superiors that we have or your board attorney are going to be the people who are going to be defending you and helping you. So you want to do what they instruct you to do. So taking that time to ask is never, ever a bad thing to do. And then also just keeping good documentation. Even on things like I had sent this child's teacher to a training at UNCW about transgender children in the classroom. And then at the end of the year, even though it had been a great year, the mom got onto a bandwagon with ACLU suing the governor. And all of a sudden, everything was horrible. But we had all this documentation of letters where she had said what a great year it was. So that sort of took care of all that. So that documentation is just irreplaceable. You can't. Just good documentation, even though it takes a minute, is well worth that time. Other diverse things that happen with children in their lives that we don't see oftentimes is maybe they're worried because they're from an unsafe neighborhood, or maybe they're living in a house with two parents of the same gender, or maybe they're living in fear of deportation because their parents are illegal immigrants. So all these things that sometimes we don't see on the outside that we really need to be mindful of, that our children are bringing with them to school every day. So as educators, we have to be educated, and we have to be confident in awareness and our intentional efforts to avoid stereotyping. And I said this last week, and I think this is just one of my guiding principles that always just comes back to serve us well, which is always being respectful to everyone, to their faces and to their backs. Representing beliefs of diverse values and behaviors that others bring to our school, recognizing that the shared similarities amongst us, we have these shared similarities. We all want a good education for our children. We all want a sense of self-worth. We all want to be safe and healthy. So thinking about those shared similarities, recognizing that we are all different, and taking responsibility for the way that we react to others and to differences and to diversity. Attempting to see things from others' perspectives, different points of view. Oftentimes, a common school misnomer is that the teacher is always right. Well, you know what? Sometimes the parents are right. Develop problem solving and conflict resolution skills. Engage in team building exercises where people learn to value and respect the contributions of everyone. So we used to call America a melting pot, but now the terms have sort of changed to a mosaic society or a tossed salad, where there's a place for all individuals, where we can maintain everyone's uniqueness and everyone's differences are equally valued and appreciated. So why, as educators, do we need to be concerned about diversity? Well, in schools, we have to establish respectful relationships. It was already mentioned earlier, that's part of our evaluations as well, besides the fact that it's just the right thing to do. And those who appear, always remember, those who appear outwardly similar to us, and then we have those who don't appear outwardly similar to us, but we may not be similar to those who appear outwardly similar to us, or vice versa. When our students enter the workplace, it's very likely that their businesses are going to require them to compete with or cooperate and work with people from the other side of the world. And most likely, those very different outward appearances from folks from the other side of the world, their cultures, traditions, and beliefs, our students are going to have to know how to work in a respectful environment, respectful of all differences, to be successful. So the success of our students and on basically the economy of the United States is square on our shoulders, because we have to prepare our students for this 21st century global society in which we live. Our schools are a reflection of our society, and as our society becomes more diverse, the more we as educators must educate ourselves and consistently be respectful of others and ensure that all contributions are considered and respected as valuable. We have to conscientiously ensure that we aren't inadvertently giving some students an unfair advantage over others, or setting our expectations higher for some students based on our own flawed perceptions. And that's something else that you'll see in that video, is unfair advantages.
So, of course, in the North Carolina Teacher Evaluation Instrument, especially in Standard 2, has an expectation for teachers to intentionally develop lessons and select materials that counteract stereotypes and incorporate histories and contributions of all cultures. The instrument requires us to recognize the influences on a child's development, personality, and performance, and to consider, incorporate, and teach about different points of view. And it's our role as an administrators to make sure that these things are occurring in those classrooms. And then, of course, we have our framework for 21st century learning that talks about global awareness and providing an education for global awareness and respecting diversities and avoiding stereotypical behaviors and teaching everyone to be respectful of each other and to work well together. So all of this goes beyond just diversity training and simple awarenesses. As charged in element 2B of the teacher evaluation instrument, we have to embrace diversity in our school community and make sure that all values and all contributions are valued. The principles in our evaluation instrument, and you'll see that your assistant principal evaluation instrument will be the same as the principal's evaluation instrument. And in Standard 4B, it particularly speaks to hiring that diverse staff that is reflective of your student body and that can work well with your diverse student population. So, like I said, this is just a huge topic. I encourage you as a school administrator to be competent through training, monitor the intentional teaching about differences, different points of view, and the use of materials to counteract stereotypes in the schools that you lead. Train your staff, use education as a learning tool for students who are not respectful of differences. Oftentimes, in my school, when we have a child who is not respectful of differences, in lieu of some other kind of punishment, we make them get a book in the library on their Lexile level, and we call it a college course because for all intents and purposes, it is. They have to get a book, they have to read something that correlates with what they have done about disrespect, and then we give them all kinds of assignments that they have to do at home in lieu of like suspension or something like that, because really and truly our effort's not to punish the child, the effort is to help the child to learn to be respectful of people that they perceive to be different from them. And especially I think in dealing with elementary children, we have to be mindful that they may be getting some of this at home. So we have to think about all that well. So hopefully with these home assignments, hopefully we're also influencing some of the parents. Just remember that we should always be respectful of everyone, and remember that just because someone looks similar to our school community majority doesn't necessarily mean they are similar, and just because someone looks dissimilar does not necessarily mean that they are dissimilar. And regardless, we're all a part of that mosaic or all a part of that tossed salad, that when we're placed together, we come together and we all have valuable contributions that should be respected. So that is a big topic, and thank you for listening, and thank you for going ahead and just reflecting now about how when you are a school administrator, you can have a positive influence on the vast array of diversities that will make up your school community, so that we're doing our jobs of preparing students for life and competitive work success in our 21st century global society that we're trying to prepare them for.
Okay, thank you. Thank all of you. And Dr. Lamb, I see you've brought something up, so we're close to our time. So if you will do the benediction, and I think you've got something that you want to use for your benediction.
Yes, I'm going to close out tonight with the benediction. Is the role of the principal, their ethics in the school executive. There are 4 paradigms of ethics. To summarize tonight, the ethics of our profession: accountability for academic and social success, model principles of self-awareness, reflective practice, transparency and ethical behavior, safeguard the values of democracy, equity and diversity, consider and evaluate the potential moral and legal consequences of decision making, promote social justice, and ensure that individual student needs inform all aspects of schooling, and make sure that you have the best interests of students. Rights, responsibility, respect are keys to making decisions that are in students' best interest. This is a summation of the three presentations that you saw tonight. The micropolitics of education, they are many and varied and hard to navigate through, but at all times we must, above all, maintain the ethics of our profession. And there they are on our screen.
That's right.
Thank you for joining us all tonight.
And Dr. Lamb, the ones that were just a few minutes late getting on, we'll send the video out. If you have any questions about anything that was discussed prior to you getting on, feel free to reach out to me tomorrow and I'll be glad to speak with you. You got my phone number, you can email me, you can talk to me any way you need to, but I'll help you if you have any issues with anything. Okay. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Bye.